I'm an named Dennis. Welcome to Building a Workshop session. And this presentation was originally like 7 or 8 slides created by Steve R. and Jack H. And it was modified by the Delegate Training Work Group for this workshop. Regional delegates are called on to do many things in the course of service. One of the most common is putting on some kind of workshop. IDT workshops, CAR-CAT workshops, literature workshops, interactive workshops, fellowship development or outreach workshops, panel presentations, and more. So many to choose from and so many to do. There's even workshops about workshops, hence we're here. Whether at an area, region, zone, or wherever, putting on workshops and presentations is also often one of the core responsibilities a delegate has and is a powerful tool for helping share information. Whether you're new to the process or an experienced member in service, this can be a daunting task. So our goal for today is to help both new and experienced members get more familiar and comfortable with interactive workshops. Along the way, we'll look at how to identify what it is we're trying to accomplish, what the common components are in interactive workshop, how to read, modify, and create these workshops and session profiles. And it is important to remember that workshops, presentations, and session profiles can always be modified to better fit your needs. Quite often, session profiles, such as those for issue discussion topics, are just a foundation for workshops, and many members modify them in some small or large way. And as noted at the beginning of this particular workshop, we took a pre-existing presentation that was 7 or 8 slides and stretched out to however many slides it is now, 27 slides, plenty. Some of them we fly through pretty quick though, but we did major modifications, but used this as a foundation. Even CAR and CAT PowerPoints that are put out by NAWs are often modified by delegates to put in more information or make it more useful for local members. So after we talk about the basics, we'll break up into small groups to create a session profile. So get thinking about who might want to be a secretary. There'll be a basic handout to download and screen share in your breakout rooms that'll help you with creating that outline. And given we are just under 20 members, I'll probably only do 2 breakouts. So I'll just need 2 secretaries and may modify the timing a little bit later, depending on how this goes. Got to stay flexible. So first, let's talk basics. Workshop components, something all workshops have, a beginning and an end. Now matrix come to mind. Everything has a beginning and end, Neo. All workshops have the beginning or introduction and something to wrap it up. I mean, it really is as simple as it sounds. Introductions just tend to review the agenda and what the goals are, give some basic information about what you're there for, and it's an important factor in bringing everyone together on the same page for why we're all here. And if members are unclear about what a workshop is trying to do, any step along the way, it's really going to set back what that workshop is there to accomplish. They won't be able to fully participate in any active or real way. Then in the end, it's helpful to have some kind of wrap-up summary that really touches back on the purpose. It really just kind of brings everything back together, not necessarily like-minded or unanimous in what we think about something, but bring us back to that common purpose of why we were here and what we were set up to accomplish together. And then everything that goes between the introduction and wrap-up is a buffet of options. It's completely up to you. And here's just a couple of the more common ones. Large group discussion. As you've experienced this weekend, that's just what it sounds like. It's a point in the workshop that asks the entire group for participation, asking a question, asking people to raise hands, asking for a report back from a small group. Often these are just used as after a small group breakout to give an opportunity for those groups to report back what they did. And sometimes they're used prior to small group breakouts to just actively engage the body and get the mind going before going into a small group. And then small groups, these are where the larger groups break off into smaller groups of 4 to 8 addicts, whether live around tables, usually round tables, but not always, or virtually in breakout rooms, and talk about a specific topic, taking down notes of their discussion, and oftentimes picking a couple key points to report back to the large group. These are very useful for getting everyone involved in some way that asking everyone in a large group might not be able to accomplish, especially developing any kind of strategies, literature development, review, and it is really useful for helping members who may be uncomfortable speaking up in a large group, actually getting their voice heard in some meaningful way. I know that the first time I participated in a large group, small group IDT workshop, that was me. Like I was not one that could raise my hand in the large group, but in the small group, I was really comfortable and I got to hear a lot more experience in a more intimate setting than if it had just been entirely a presentation in a large group. Then there's speakers and panels. We're fairly familiar with this. It's just what it sounds like. A lot of this is just what it sounds like. Having one or more people share experience and information on a topic as part of a workshop. And another tool that is often underutilized, and I'm personally a huge fan of, is the power of the skit. Some members and service bodies incorporate skits into their workshops to keep it fun and engaging. Sometimes writing and performing the skit is even part of the workshop. And these are just some of the options for what we can put into our workshops. Be creative, be engaging, be enthusiastic, have fun. And while the disease of addiction and the message of recovery are serious, we don't need to take each other so serious in the course of carrying it. And a typical, now that we've touched on some basic components, let's take a look at a couple typical workshop structures or even non-typical. In this case, probably the most common one you have that most IDT session profiles follow: introduction, large group discussion, small group, large group, wrap up. Or even knock out that first large group if you just go introduction straight into small group, then back to large group. But you'll probably find most session profiles go something like that. Another simple workshop structure we're familiar with, car workshops: introduction, presentation, large group. And you really could just say introduction, presentation, large group, back and forth, because you present on a motion, take Q&A, present on a motion, Q&A, wrap up. CBDM workshop, consensus on Mars. Some of you may have participated in the one that Lewis and I did at a couple different zones and a couple different areas, and I think a region. It's an introduction, alternating panel presentation going back and forth between a few people. Then a skit is acted out for a mock region or mock area in one case. Large group Q&A, wrap up, closing thoughts. Being a conference participant from yesterday. One of the ones that Sandy presented: introduction, presentation, large group, presentation, back and forth, and then small group, large group, wrap up. I think we skipped the small group on that because we discovered that 75 minutes wasn't quite enough to fit all of this in. But if you notice, it's alternating large group and presentation to keep it engaging, interactive. The irony of that is actually this workshop I'm doing right now, I don't alternate or engage as much early on. So this is more of a talking head presentation, then we engage later. And then for a different kind of workshop, one former delegate's experience, when the raw input for guiding principles was being asked for, I took a look at how we could best engage our local members in being part of the literature process, and not just being a part of it, but wanting to be a part of it and recognizing that it can be fun. So I worked with the local area to set up an event that packaged the literature workshop in between some speakers and food and such. We love to show up for our speakers. We especially love to show up for food. And the workshop itself went introduction, large group, small group, large group skits, wrap up. And how this worked was introduce the workshop, the purpose, where the literature project came from, and the inestimable value of hearing everybody's voice in our literature. Like, even if your words don't directly go in the literature, your words get read and become a part of the consciousness of someone that's working on the literature. So we all have an impact. We all weave together in our literature as we work on it. So the large group took input, asking members for examples of the first tradition in 3 categories: personal life, recovery, and service. Those went on giant Post-its stuck on the walls. Then we broke into small groups of 6 or 7 members each, but first asked people to rearrange so they were sitting with tables of people they didn't know. Each table was given one of those categories: personal life, recovery, service, and given 15 to 20 minutes to create a skit that demonstrated the first tradition in that category. When we came back to large group, each table was actually asked to act out that skit. They had 5 minutes to briefly 5 minutes each to act out that skit. And in wrapping up, everyone was referred to how they could further participate in the project as members, groups, and service bodies. Everybody had a great time, from newcomers that had less than 30 days clean to experienced members with over 30 years clean. We had quite a mix that day. And I had no negative comments, and I've been quite a few positive comments on that. And as an added benefit, many members left with a better understanding of how the traditions fit in our lives. Win, win, win. So a recurring theme in this workshop here is be creative, be engaging, be enthusiastic, and have fun. I say that a lot. because it's very important. We tend to forget it. And as an example, many people recognize I wear a unicorn hat time to time. Right before the pandemic, I wore that for co-facilitating an area planning workshop, first we'd ever done. And we also had party hats and googly eyes for all the members. And everyone had a blast, and we came away with real projects to help our area progress forward. And everyone came away with a renewed sense of gratitude and hope for area. Unfortunately, like 2 months later, the pandemic hit and everything shut down and we scattered. So anyways, so now that we've gone through some example outlines, let's walk through a session profile. We're going to go through the issue discussion topic, carrying the NA message and making NA attractive. The first part of the profile is just a checklist of materials you need. Instructions, guidelines, traditions, all the stuff that you're going to need for putting out on the tables, printouts, things that you need for the workshop itself, and then a reminder what your goals are. These are for the facilitator, your personal notes of this is what you're here to do. And then you go through introduction is frames the topic, goes through its history, brings us together on why we're here and what we're here to do. Then we move into a large group discussion to get people together on the same page and help just get the wheels turning before breaking into small groups. It helps, sometimes having that large group, it helps get things going to where people aren't quite as just floating, wandering in the small groups going, oh, what are we talking about? What are we supposed to do here? Having a little bit of large group before, and sometimes not, but in this case, large group discussion just to get things going. And then intro to small group. One of the things that even experienced members with this, I've done it more than once, stumble on forgetting to adequately set up a small group discussion, because you're breaking a large group facilitated by 1 or 2 members into multiple groups facilitated by members that didn't come there prepared to facilitate, that are there to participate in the workshop but weren't there as facilitators, but now they're going to need to facilitate, take notes, and be prepared to report back. If people go into a small group confused about what that small group is, then what they come out with, one, it's going to be less attractive to participate in, more frustrating, and there's going to be less clarity and less effectiveness in what it produces coming back out. And like I said, I've done it more than once where I messed up or failed to adequately prep into a small group. Who knows, maybe I'll do that today. Optimism. And then small group, which if you notice on this session profile, and quite often small groups are given the bulk of the time, because most of the work, most of the discussion really happens there. It gets everybody present, talking and engaged and doing something together, producing something, answering questions. This is typically one of the most powerful tools of any workshop that has a takeaway, like literature development, planning, increased understanding in specific topics, not necessarily car cat. I don't know, maybe we could come up with something car cat that has small groups. That would be interesting. I'd kind of a new creative way to do it, but anyways, I digress. But small groups are typically given, if you have small groups, they're typically given the bulk of the workshop because there's so much more done in them, and it's more intimate setting. And then some time, usually about half the time in the small group, to give a report so that the small groups can actually say, hey, this is what we did. This is the cool stuff that we just came up with. And then wrap up. Brief, 5 minutes. Thank you for being here. Some closing thoughts, and here's where you can find more information on this, more materials, or what a next step for having participated in this is. Very simple, very brief, and also gathering up any content or anything that was, if the workshop was to write something, gathering it up, and sometimes even just taking, like it says on there, taking pictures of post-it notes or typed responses. That's how I've sent in more than one literature workshop, taking pictures of the notes and emailing those. Sometimes that's how I've had workshops sent to me so I could relay them on when I was a delegate. And ta-da, we just facilitated a fully interactive workshop, and in this case, an issue discussion workshop, using a session profile that you can find on NA.Org/IDT. It's really not that complicated. It can seem daunting, it can seem intimidating, but it's not that complicated once you get down into it and just do it. Something to think about, though, is what might you have done differently in facilitating that workshop? Would you change the format, kept it the same, change some of the questions, change some of the materials? Would you have left it as is and facilitated straight from the session profile? These are all things to think about when you're preparing to facilitate a workshop. If you're using a session profile, look at it and see what fits, what doesn't. If it all fits, great, do it. If it doesn't, tweak it, change it, have fun. So with all that said, and we're going to look, now that we've looked at the basic components and some workshop formats and a session profile, let's talk about planning a workshop. First, we take a look at what topic we're trying to build a workshop around. Then we consider what it is we're trying to accomplish with the workshop. Are we trying to share information, gather information, help develop literature, facilitate planning? Is there some output, something that we're trying to take away, like notes or literature input? Or is the point to increase understanding or awareness on a topic? Is this truly just an issue discussion topic to bring members farther along in their own understanding of a topic? Are we just trying to engage members and build enthusiasm? Which actually, that engagement and enthusiasm should always be considered a goal. That's kind of underlying point of having interactive workshops. And the planning basics, the checklist. How much time do you have to accomplish your goals? And are your goals realistic? Are you trying to pack 10 pounds of something in a 5-pound bag? Or do you feel that you can accomplish what you're out to accomplish in the time that you're given? Where are you doing the workshop? Is it face-to-face, virtual, hybrid? What are you going to need to do all of those? If it's face-to-face or hybrid, what kind of layout is possible for the room for tables? Do you have round tables? Do you have a hollow square, as it's called? Do you have a classroom set up? Do you have the ability to even rearrange anything? Does it allow, for example, for small group breakouts? If you don't have a setup that allows for small group breakouts, you're not really going to be able to do a small group breakout effectively. You might have to adapt the workshop to where you're meeting. And then does it allow, if you're doing hybrid, does it allow for members to connect virtually? And then if you're doing virtual or hybrid, do you have the ability to do breakouts for small groups? If not, if the platform you're using can't do breakouts, well, I guess you can't really do small groups. You need to keep this in mind. What AV, audio, video resources do you have? Computer, tablet, projector, speaker, mic? How's the lighting situation? All of these are considerations for as you're setting up for a presentation workshop. Sometimes if you don't have a projector, then you need to consider printing out more material so people have them in front of them for what you're reading from. We don't always have the ability to use projectors, although it's pretty much commonplace nowadays, but not always. So we need to be able to adapt. What handouts, literature, resources do you need to have out and available? Do you need specific traditions, specific service tools? Do you need basics like large stick flip-up charts, like we call the giant Post-it notes that you see stuck to the walls? Do we need dots? Are we going to be going, when we go small group and go to large group, we're going to be putting little dots next to our favorite topics so we move on in prioritization? Do we need markers? What do we need? Like all these things we need to think about in setting up for a workshop. It's part of our session profile and part of our checklist of doing this. And then what else might you need? Is there something else somewhere in the mix you're going to need to do these? And like I said, all of these are things that we take into consideration as we adapt workshops to meet our needs. If we don't have the ability to do small group breakouts and a session profile calls for it, then we need to be flexible and adapt. And to that, I'll share another of my stories. A quick story from a former delegate's experience. This one was fun. I was given the task of doing an input and review for Spiritual Principle a Day at an area convention in 2019. Originally, I was given 90 minutes plus 15 minutes setup and 15 minutes cleanup. And the workshop format was going to be introduction, large group brief discussion to get the creative juices flowing, and then small group writing, take quite a bit of time for everyone to go into small groups and write and to talk and go over the material. And then large group to share briefly on some of the highlights and then gather all the notes, and there we go. A nice Spiritual Principle Day workshop. Pretty basic literature input and review. The tools of the trade were fairly standard: projector, laptop, handouts, pen, paper, review material, and 6 to 8 person roundtables. When I arrived to check in with the convention to go set up the workshop, I was informed I had 60 minutes, not 90. And the 60 included 15 minutes cleanup and setup and breakdown. Sorry, I got a 5-year-old peeking in now. Ava, I love you. That way. Thank you. she's gotten really good about these. But so yeah, I was informed I had 60 minutes that included my setup and breakdown instead of 90 minutes plus setup and breakdown. So with that, obviously the going into the small groups wasn't really going to be that effective. That wasn't going to happen. So I had to practice the spiritual principle of flexibility. Quickly reworked the format to be large group only, no writing, and used laptop and projector to put the review handouts on screen, which I happen to have handy. And then I had people raise their hands to share on what they saw, what stood out, what their experience was, give their input and review, what it brought to mind. And I used my phone walked over to them as a microphone and used the voice recorder on it to capture their input. And then after everything was said and done, transcribe that and send it in. So did this for about 40 minutes, captured a lot of good input. And you know what, did the workshop go as planned? Absolutely not. Was it successful both in a spiritual sense and accomplishing its goal? Absolutely yes. We always need to be flexible in order to, and ready to adapt to situations as they arise. Things change, things happen. And this can be challenging at times, but some of my favorite people like to say challenges bring opportunities. So, brief, large group. What are some common workshops? Throw them out there. I can't throw it on, oh yeah, I can't throw it on screen because it's in for note taking, but I can take notes now. But just throw it out there. What's some common workshops that you might be called on to do?
This is bad.
Spiritual Principle Day. Cool. What else? I see Car Cat in chat. New GSR. Good one. Say new GSR. How about new RCM? RCM orientation of some kind. What else?
Building strong home groups is one I've seen offered a lot.
That's an awesome one too. Love it. Strong home groups. And hi, Ava. Thank you.
I always like public image.
Good one. Cool. And attracting members to service, or third tradition, or one of my favorites, or my first one, I take that back. First one that I sat in on, group conscience. And it opened my eyes to, because of the small groups and the intimacy of the small groups, sitting at a table who everybody's area operated a little bit differently in relation to group conscience. That's all just a little different. It's like, whoa. So there isn't just one NA way that we interact with our areas, or our areas interact with our regions, or our, wow, okay. Let's hop over to, let's build. We're gonna go into small groups. I have on here for 30 minutes. I think we can get away with probably 35 to 40 minutes because I'm only gonna do 2 breakout groups, and then the large group will be cut in half for time. So I was originally figuring 4 groups for this. Before we break and before we go any farther, we need a secretary. I need 2. And if no one speaks up, then some people are used to me volunteering them. I'm looking at you, Sherry. Adam, are you up to it?
Sure.
Sherry, you up for it?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. Secretaries. In there, you will find this for a note sheet. And there also is a folder in there with session profiles if you want to go through something that's already created, modify it, or use it as is. But here's the questions that you are out to answer. You have 30 to 40 minutes to build an outline for a workshop. Originally, I was going to call out topics. I'm going to let each room choose your topic, what workshop you're going to build. And then also part of your response will be why you picked that workshop. So you're going to build a 90-minute workshop. Pretend that the resources you have, you can do small groups, you can do large groups, you can do whatever kind of formats you want. You can build this out for physical, virtual, hybrid, take your pick, doesn't matter. We have our volunteer secretaries. With having group sizes that we do, probably good to pick a facilitator once you get into the group, someone that can help keep the discussion going. And then here's your topic. What are your goals? And why did you pick those as goals? Like every part of this is going to be what and why. And then what's your format? How are you fleshing this out? How much time are you giving to them? And what questions are you asking? What's the point of this section of the workshop? What are you doing there? How are you filling this out? And then did you use any source materials and why? So let's build these workshops. Okay, go for it.
Oh, sorry about, okay. So I was the facilitator, which was fun. We had a good group. I think it was, the first thing we was like, oh, we're going to pick our topic. So we realized, okay. And we thought increasing fund flow would be a good thing. Like that's kind of a hot topic and nobody likes to talk about money. So we thought it might be an interesting kind of a challenge for a workshop. So what the goals we set out were for, as you can see, like what we, the question we're asked, what specifically we're trying to accomplish. And like it shows their increased awareness of the importance of fund flow and direct donations rather than literature sales or events in order to support NAWS, or the World Service Office. And then there was the concept, which was sort of interesting. I think that one member had brought up about the difference between calling it a contribution or a donation, like the terminology. And we had some different people from that English was not their primary language and checked with them and they got it also. I mean, in their language, it's the same type of a thing. Like you contribute to something that we're a part of rather than donating to like a charitable organization or something like that. So that was one of our goals, to try to get that out there as well. And then again, self-support. And then it was mentioned from someone from another country also that there's not a lot of understanding by newer members of where the money goes once it gets past the home group, once the coffee's bought and the rent is paid and things like that. So we want to increase the understanding of what happens at the World Service Office. So then we went down to the little section there and decided that we were going to give ourselves an hour. That we decided ours would be an hour workshop, which was a bit of a challenge, but we also felt that a 90-minute workshop might be just a little too long to hold people's attention. So we just said, okay, well, we'll make it an hour. So we gave ourselves a 5-minute for introduction where we thought we'd read some information about the 7th tradition or Money Matters IP or something along that line. And we tweaked the time. Like when we put in the time, these numbers are all different. Hopefully they add up to 60 minutes now once we left the room. But once we realized, okay, this may not take so long, so we'll add more time here. So we gave 5 for the introduction and 15 for the large group. We thought we'd maybe get a question out of the Guiding Principles book from the 7th tradition and talk about, sort of in the larger group, sort of put to a side like the pros and cons of using conventions, events, or literature sales as a source of income, rather than have that be something as a small group question that could, send people sort of down a rabbit hole a little bit, which we didn't think would be productive. So we sort of felt as a group that the most time should be in the small groups. So we had 25 minutes. We had 20 initially, I think. And then we asked, like, where do you see the money you contributed being spent? And what ways to explain to other members the importance of fund flow? Like, so back to the question of people that are new, like where the dollar goes. Like it suggested, like you follow the dollar, from the basket in the home group, maybe the area to the region, World Service. And then we get back, we bring everybody back. And part of our discussion also was it's going to really depend on how many people were at the workshop, how many breakouts we'd have, so how much time we need for the large group to hear from everybody in the breakout. So we kind of left it at 10, just getting feedback from the groups. And then we thought for a wrap up, we'd give a link to the direct contribution at NAWS or pass the basket. And one of our members asked a question, which I really didn't have the answer to, but like for different currencies in different countries, how is that set up too? So that was just an aside that I didn't actually have an answer for, and somebody maybe can when I'm done. And then the source material, the Guiding Principles book, Money Matters IP, It Works How and Why, A Guide to Local Service, the NAWS annual report, maybe not all the fine tooth of it in an hour's workshop, but maybe some of those pie charts that showed like how much from literature sales as opposed to how much from direct contributions and how that's changing. And maybe possibly even local treasurers reports. So that's kind of what we banged out for our workshop. But I think we kind of decided it would actually be in real life a fun workshop to put together. So thanks.
Very cool. Applause, show of hands for the group for building that workshop. Great job, guys. And
Thank you.
Sherry and Leah, you are up.
Thank you for that last one. I really liked how far you guys dug into all the different ways to look at that, following the dollar. Yeah, so ours, I think I or we got a little tripped up on that we're actually creating a workshop and not actually doing a workshop. And I think about I think it's Dennis or whoever that is like literally doing a workshop while supervising 2 workshops about a workshop that's making a workshop. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm like, wait, just wait. So anyway, I get off topic. We chose how to be a good GSR. And it says, you know, introduction 10 minutes, which, so we started off with like, what is the goal of this workshop? And, you know, to be a better GSR, it would be, you know, to improve communication between area and group. And we wrote, what specifically are you trying to accomplish by putting this workshop on? And so to be a better GSR is to help be better prepared in their efforts, which could include attending area meetings, maybe not missing any, taking notes, reporting back to each group, and highlighting, you know, some of the motions and more pertinent information. And then it says, what format are you going to use to accomplish these goals? So we decided that we would do a large group with a skit. And that I think what we decided was that we were going to do the skit with GSRs that have already been, you know, GSRs, and they would probably act out what worked for them in the past, and maybe like mistakes they've made in the past that didn't work. For example, you know, not taking notes, taking notes, arriving on time, or like being late. Maybe, you know, not giving all the information like about motions, or maybe putting their own twist on it. And then probably also having a copy of the previous minutes would be a good thing. And, you know, and then they would break out into smaller groups. And I think we decided on 40 minutes altogether. So probably like, I don't know. Oh, okay. So the large group is 20 minutes, small group is 30. Okay, so the small groups, they would talk about maybe like their own experience as a GSR, or if they've never been one, they could kind of sit in and listen, or mistakes that they've made, anything they can relate to with the skits. And, you know, we would ask them during their breakout rooms what question. So they would probably relate back, or any other ideas about, you know, anything they could improve on. So we kind of ran out of a little bit of time. We had to just kind of wrap it up. And so we said that we would just have each small group come back to the larger group, and they would, I guess, sort of just conclude or share out loud what they have felt that in their small group they could relate to or couldn't, or any other new ideas that they had.
Thank you. I'm sorry, had a 5-year-old poking her head in. Great job, guys. Great job, both workshops. Great job presenting. How do you guys feel about the workshop we just did, about this workshop? Do you feel more comfortable if you were asked as an RD, RCM, a trusted servant of any kind, you feel like you could come away from this better prepared to construct or modify a workshop to help somebody somewhere be something, whatever they can pick?
Yes.
So anyone have some takeaway thoughts
Yes,
in the next 4 minutes?
Yeah, I have a thought. I think that when I get my next workshop together, I will use more than just my brain. You know what I'm saying? Have 2 or 3 people putting it together. That seemed to work better, you know, and not try to do things by myself. So that's what I got out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the things we did when we did the IDTs is we modified as already has been said, but each slide, if there was a slide along with it, we would put the person's name on the session profile of the team that was presenting, the delegate team, so that we had to go by so that it was a total team effort as far as, you know, someone, the AD do this slide, the RD do that slide, and we have an RDA too, would do this slide. And then we had everything worked out so that we weren't falling over top of each other and working as a team. It flowed, and we had our names and everything on the session profile to help with that.
Nice. I think someone else just was about to speak up too.
Yeah, Leah Addict. Yeah, this is my first workshop I've ever been to, I think, at least virtually. So, the parts that worked for me were certainly the breakout rooms. I don't think I would have participated otherwise. I know I wouldn't have. And now that I hear myself talking and getting feedback from you guys, it makes me feel a little bit more confident in myself that maybe I'm not as stupid as I thought I was. So that's that. And then I also think that people, I think, again, I have to talk about yesterday about people that are seeing these ABC things, DSRs, district, is that what it is? No, regional.
Regional delegates.
Yes, thank you. The delegates, which sounds like such a big, important word. We're talking about when they decided to be in the position that they took from beginning to present. I think that's huge. I think talking about that instead of just what the position entails, talking also about their own experience as to why they took the position, and as it went along, how it made their lives better. That's really, yeah. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and call on Jim as a relatively new delegate who's been through this whole process here this weekend. Do you feel better equipped as a delegate?
I really do, Dennis. I thank you for calling on me. To say to you and everybody who's put this on, I really feel like I have much better tools, much better concept of what the job is, what it is that I need to do. It was fabulous. It gets a 5-star review from me. This was a terrific workshop over these past 2 days. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And how about Willie?
Yes.
A non-US member joining us for this whole thing. How do you feel? Were we able to help you out at all?
Well, absolutely. Yesterday and today was really great, and I've learned an awful lot. And what Leah was sharing also about deciding to be a delegate, what is this really about? And my understanding was already like it will be huge, and now I'm getting a better understanding that it's huger than I thought. But at least I'm not alone, and I have you guys to guide me, and I'm not alone in this. But yes, I've learned a lot. But I must say, I always admire the commitment and the service in the US, and that's why I'm trying to follow it, because we Dutch are very comfortable with everything, and you know, people don't do service so quick. And so our first workshop would be, how do you get these people enthusiastic about doing service? But I've learned an awful lot here. So thank you guys, really, from my heart. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for being here.